My name is Kirsten and I'm currently a third-year student at the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine, otherwise known as CCNM in Toronto, Ontario. And today I'm going to be taking you through how I studied for NPLEX Part 1, what that looked like on a day-to-day for me, and maybe it can help you prepare and kind of get a better idea of how your day-to-day might look studying for NPLEX. So anyways, let's get started. I do want to disclose that what works for me for studying maybe won't work for you, and maybe you can take some components for yourself and maybe some other parts of what I've done doesn't work for you, and that's okay. This video is to just give you an idea of what me as a student did to prepare so that maybe you can take some inspiration, see what resources maybe work for you, and just to get an idea, because I know personally that I didn't know where to start and what my studying would look like. So I just want to give you guys a better idea and hopefully it helps. So the first resource I ever used was this Usmle Step 1 First Aid book. This book is pretty much what I would use my day-to-day to really base off of what and how I was going to study. So it's really sectioned off into every part of the body that you need to know for this exam, and it goes over the high yield or most important information. And so I would recommend, if you are a person that likes visuals and needs kind of a breakdown, this book is really helpful. Just keep in mind it's not actually based off of NPLEX, it's based off of Usmle, which is the MD doctor licensing examination test that they take. So it might be a little bit different, but most of the information that we use is pretty similar to this anyways. NPLEX also offers a guide on their own, and this was what I used definitely the most. So it goes through all of the body systems like cardiovascular, respiratory, endocrine, all of those, and it lists off all the topics that you need to be informed in. So I found this really helpful for me because it gave me a good layout of what I should expect to know and what to study. So this is what I used the most, and I would just check off all of the points when I was done studying that so that I knew I went through everything. And then it also gives you all of the conditions that you would need to know, or all the diseases that you will need to know to be prepared for the exam. So it is a lot and it can be overwhelming, but it's good to have that in front of you because that's how I really laid out how I was actually going to schedule my studying. So that's what we're going to talk about next, is scheduling studying. So how I scheduled my studying was at the beginning of my study period, which was 12 weeks before the exam. Some people choose to do 10 weeks, some people choose to do 4 weeks. It's really up to you. I knew I needed more time, and so the 12-week period seemed right for me. So at the beginning, or actually a week before that, I sat down and I went through all of the topics and how many weeks I was going to study. So some weeks I studied one topic, and those were the topics that were worth more, like the cardiovascular system, I believe, was worth 12% of the examination. And so that was a whole week on its own. But smaller topics like hematology were ones that I prioritized in weeks with other smaller topics so that they could be done together, because I knew they weren't as important to spend as much time on, and therefore I could break them up throughout the week. So my weeks really look like me studying Monday through Saturday, sometimes Monday through Sunday, to be honest. It really depended on how much information I was able to get through the week. And you have to keep in mind that some days you're just not going to be motivated, and that's okay. And so I studied Monday to Friday between 10 a.m. to 7 to 9 p.m. It really depended on the day again and how much I was able to get done. But for instance, I would wake up in the morning and I would study through the NPLEX guide, go through as much information as I could throughout the day. I would typically at the beginning of the week break down what I needed to get done each day out of that topic so I could really know and be prepared for how much I needed to study, and this really helped me stay on track. But after that, I would study until about 5. That was the cutoff of studying from the guide. And then I started studying my cue cards, and I used Anki cue cards. If you've never used Anki, I totally suggest it. It's based on spaced repetition, and that really helped me to remember all of the things that I needed to, and to go over things I struggled with learning. And so if a topic is difficult for me, or there was a specific question I just couldn't seem to get, it would keep repeating more often so that I would really get into my head. And then for the topics that I knew really well, it really pushed back into the deck of cue cards so that I wouldn't see it for days to weeks, and I was good to continue to do that. And you can reassess every time you get that question when you want to see it next, which is really, really helpful. And so Anki is something I really suggest to start from the beginning. You do have to make your own cue cards, so that's a little bit difficult. But what I would do is, as I studied through the day, I would just add those Anki cue cards into my deck and just keep typing them throughout the day when I had questions or saw questions that I really liked or had topics that maybe I knew I needed to remember more. So those all went into my Anki deck. And then I would just go and use them from 5 to 9 p.m. depending on how much I wanted to get through. I typically tried to get between 60 to 80 cue cards a day, but I was also easy on myself when I couldn't do that. But it really is helpful when you have so many questions. I think by the end of it, I had around 1,000 questions in my Anki deck for NPLEX 1, so that was a lot, but when you break it down, it makes it a lot easier. So start early with all of this. I totally recommend that. And then a big resource I would use that I actually did before anything at the beginning of the week was Dr. Anderson's NPLEX guide. And so if you just look up Dr. Anderson NPLEX, you'll be able to sign up, and all of his resources are free, which is amazing and so helpful. But he used to be on the board, I believe, for creating the exam questions. He isn't anymore, so he is familiar with the type of questions that they have written in their question bank. And so all of his stuff was really, really helpful because he points out through every body system the information that maybe you wouldn't think of knowing, but that is really, really helpful to know. So that was really helpful, and I would use that at the beginning of the week to make sure that I was prepared for what I really needed to focus on, and I could add those questions to my Anki deck, and then that way I could just go through it and those questions would be familiar in my mind, and I found that really, really helpful. Now, something that they do recommend is that you only use about 2 to 3 resources throughout your studying, and I did find this kind of difficult because I find that I am so bad at getting all the information I need to out of a couple resources. However, at the same time, I understand why they say this, because in all realness, it is really difficult to bounce back and forth from different resources. It is time consuming and sometimes you're less productive. So you really got to find that balance that works for you. And I had to find that there were some resources that just didn't work for me, and that's okay. And then a big resource that I used alongside my USMLE textbook was Usmle Rx. And that is just the website that goes along with it. There is a membership that goes with it, so you do have to pay extra for that. And it really went into depth with the information, which I found helpful for stuff that I couldn't just understand on my own from reading the USMLE book. So that was really helpful, and I used that a lot alongside throughout the week. And then a great resource for visual learners is always Osmosis. I used Osmosis pretty much daily, especially for types of diseases and systems that I just couldn't understand from reading. I find that having those visuals, and especially with Osmosis, who is really good at breaking it down, it really helped me understand the body systems. It really helped me understand certain diseases, and it helped it stick in my head a little bit better to have that memory with visuals, and that can be really helpful. And with Osmosis, again, it is a membership-based thing. What I use, because at CCNM, there is a doctor who is kind enough to give a course out to students. And in that course, she offers Osmosis at a discounted rate. I believe I paid $90 for Osmosis, and it was only for until, I think, from April until September is the membership. However, you still get that membership. Instead of paying $200, you would probably pay originally, so I took that because that was necessary, and so I recommend doing that if you are a visual learner. I found it so helpful. So those were the main resources I used throughout it. So again, that was my USMLE Step 1 textbook, USMLE Rx, Osmosis, Dr. Anderson, and then Anki cue cards. This really helped me just put everything together all in the forms I needed, the visuals, the text that I needed, and then audio as well. Just having all of that in front of me, and to know that there are people who actually wrote the exam or had stuff to do with the exam questions, that was really, really helpful. And so I recommend using resources like that. And then also just looking up other students' experiences, because let's be honest, it's really hard to understand how to prepare for an exam you've never done and there's little information on. So to look up videos on YouTube, that's a great place to start. I recommend doing that before you start studying for your exam so you get a better idea, so that you know what to expect, or at least have a little bit better idea. But I guess if you're watching this video right now, you're probably doing that already, so good job. And just stay positive. A big thing that is so important during your NPLEX studying is your mental health. And if you don't have your mental health, then you have nothing. It doesn't matter how much you're studying, because you're not going to perform the way that you need to. So that was what I prioritized the most. When I woke up in the morning, my morning routine came first. It was essential to my studying, and that included meditation, breath work, visualization, movement. All of these are key. And nourishment. Nourish your body with whole foods, foods that feel good to you. And also don't be hard on yourself when you need to take breaks and when you need to take days off. Let yourself go out for drinks with friends. Let yourself have a whole day off during the week. You're going to feel guilty, but trust me, it is so worth it. And then the week before your exam, I laid it out with those 12 weeks. I was able to use my last week as my review week, but I was actually away at my cottage. And honestly, it was both stressful and super helpful, because it really helped me to just sit down, study when I could, but then take breaks when I needed to. And I think being able to take that whole week of just breathing and not fully studying all the time was so essential to my success, because I felt less burnt out when I got to the exam, when it was exam day, and I was super prepared for exam day. So I was really happy that I ended up doing that, even though I did feel guilty taking that time off and not studying as much as I hoped. But I would recommend doing what feels best for you, and if that's taking more of the week off than you thought, that's okay. Don't stress yourself out the week or the days coming up to the exam. It's just not worth it. Your mental health is so much more important, because again, you're never going to perform the way you want to if you are not mentally feeling yourself. So that's my best advice for this exam. And the day before the exam, I honestly didn't do much. I recommend taking that full day off to really just reflect and prepare and be ready for this examination, because it is a very hard examination. It is a stressful examination. And just know that your self-worth is not determined by this one exam. It is not determined by this one exam. You may fail, and that's okay. You still have 3 attempts total, and you don't have to pay the full fee the second 2 times. I just learned that recently, and that actually really helped me feel better about it. So do what you can with what you have. Try your hardest, and that is all you can do. Don't be hard on yourself. Take care of your mental health, and follow a study routine and a morning routine, night routine, day routine that feels best for you, and you'll do the best that you can. And remember that you've got this. You are so capable of killing this exam. Anyways, I hope this video was helpful for you guys. If you have any more questions about NPLEX or anything naturopathic medical school wise, send me a message on Instagram or leave a question down in the comments, and make sure you subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell so that you can see more videos like this that are helpful for you guys. And thank you for all your support. I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a lovely day. Bye!